Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I am talking about probably one of the most fascinating things I've read all year. Did you know that you can actually physically assault or possibly kill somebody online? This is true. I had no idea this is a case, but this is currently going through the US court system, and it actually has a lot of traction. Now, let's go through the backdrop of this. If you don't know who Kurt Eichenwald is, he's actually a New York Times best-selling author. He's been a journalist for the New York Times and Newsweek and Vanity Fair and all of this. He's pretty well known in the journalist community. Now, this is going to get a little bit political, but it's the backdrop. This has nothing to do with politics, but I need to set this case up for you because this is so fascinating. Now, Mr. Eichenwald is not a fan of President Trump. And on December 15th, 2016, so when President Trump was then President-elect Trump, he sent a rather inflammatory tweet out, in Twitter to the world, basically for everybody. And later that evening, when he got back into his computer, he had 170 notifications in Twitter waiting for him as a result of this specific tweet, and he didn't actually make it past the first one. And I quote the article that I'm pulling a lot of this from. A GIF that strobed violently across his computer screen, flashing red, yellow, and blue geometric patterns behind the words, "You deserve a seizure for your posts." Now, Eichenwald has epilepsy and immediately had a severe seizure because that's exactly what would happen if somebody with epilepsy, witnessed something like this. He says he would have died if his wife hadn't walked into his study and found him having a seizure from what was on the screen, the post. Now, that is the backdrop of the situation, and here is what's going on. This GIF actually set off a very unusual court battle that is expected to basically help those in similar circumstances with a new legal tool for battling things like cyber bullies, online trolls, and all of that. So this past Monday, the man who sent Eichenwald this image that gave him a seizure, John Rain Rivello, was basically set to appear in a Dallas district court, and they had to actually reschedule it until January 31st of next year. But Rivello is expected to plead guilty to aggravated assault, and he may be actually the first person of many to do this. Now, back in 2018, Eichenwald's lawyers, and this is where it gets really fascinating, won an important ruling in a federal civil lawsuit they filed against Rivello in Maryland, alongside of the criminal case in Texas, which is where I believe Rivello is located. Now, in that order, in this federal civil suit in Maryland, a chief U.S. District Judge, James Bretter, rebutted claims that there was no physical contact, between Rivello and Eichenwald, arguing that the GIFs are basically composed of light, which do not strike the eyes of the viewer. Now, here's the thing, and here's the argument that the ruling made, that it actually is physically assaulting the person. And I quote, "Light comes in rays or waves composed in part by photons. Photons hit the retina and are converted into electrical signals. Such electrical signals from strobing images can trigger seizures in certain individuals with epilepsy." So in other words, just by watching this video right here, because you are seeing me, the photons that this video is emitting through your computer screen or your phone is actually hitting your eyeballs. I am actually touching you right now, or sending you something that is touching you. I'm not personally touching you, my video is touching you, and I am intentionally putting up this video. And if this video were to possibly give you epilepsy, like let's say intentionally I tried to do that, that technically could be considered assault. Now, the Epilepsy Foundation has gotten involved with this, and they also announced on Monday that it is lodging a sweeping slate of criminal complaints, basically against a massive amount of copycats who have targeted people with epilepsy and basically sent them stuff like these strobing GIFs and all of that, which apparently is a big thing. I actually went back to see if I could find the intent of Rivello. Was it known at the time that Eichenwald had epilepsy? And the answer to that is yes. I found articles before Eichenwald had this seizure where and a couple of them that were talking about this. One was the Daily Beast, I want to say about a week or two before this, leading up to the early November election, that people were sending Eichenwald things like this, prior to that, this is the one that actually hit him and gave him a seizure. So that's obviously a very serious issue. It makes me want to rethink that if I'm posting stuff, and you guys know I post occasional photos and stuff like that, that if one of those was strobing or had the ability to cause a seizure, it's the last thing that I would want to put on there. So intent-wise, Ravello clearly could have found out that Eichenwald indeed suffered from epilepsy and then sent him something, which if Eichenwald died as a result of this, if his wife hadn't found him, I'm wondering if Ravello would have been charged with murder because basically he physically assaulted Eichenwald, which caused his death. It's so fascinating to me, but I think it's actually a very serious issue here because we do have people all over the planet with epilepsy, and they do take care to make sure that they are not subjecting themselves to something that will give them a seizure or harm them in any way. And I think, as we look at the lack of decorum, and I firmly believe, Twitter is where civility goes to die, we have a very serious issue here with copycats, with people that are willing to do this to other people, whether they realize they can get seizures or not. I think that's an issue. And I think that's really fascinating because I think it's also the very first time that somebody has been charged with a physical assault by sending something to someone over the internet. Ravello has never been anywhere near Eichenwald prior to this. They've had no direct physical contact, but Eichenwald sent Ravello sent something to Eichenwald that basically made him have, a very serious seizure. So it's fascinating to me. I think it's so interesting. I'm very curious to see where the courts will go with this, but I'm curious to know if you think this should be classified as an assault. It obviously had a detrimental and physical effect on Eichenwald, this thing that Ravello sent, this GIF, but should that be classified as assault? Should that be in the same realm as, let's say, Ravello striking Eichenwald in the face and causing him a seizure? I don't know the difference. I'm not a lawyer, but I would imagine that if you have the intent to do harm to another, knowing that they have this condition and sending them something that would exacerbate that condition, that seems to me like it clears the definition of a physical assault, even if the person is hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, like it was in this case. I think that's very fascinating. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. And that is your just fascinating and a little bit terrifying news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.